Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy and Kurt Leavins. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, David. Hello, Kurt.
Hello, fellas.
Today we are going to do kind of a mid-season segment on the players of the Edmonton Oilers. We watch them every game, and we give them game grades. This is a game grade for the middle of the season, mid-season game grades for each of the Oilers players. And I guess what should we just take turns going up and down the roster? Let's try it that way.
Okay.
See if that works. So I'm going to be doing the wingers.
Yep.
Bruce is going to be doing the centers and the goalie. And Kurt's doing the D-men. So I was away all weekend at a hockey tournament in the hamlet of Alex, Alberta. So I'm just catching up here. Bruce, do we the centers are McDavid, Draisaitl, Ryan, Shore, and McLeod?
Yeah, and
one more.
Who else?
One more guy.
Shore. You mentioned Shore.
Yeah. McDavid, Draisaitl, Ryan, Shore, and McLeod. 5 guys.
There were 6. Who is the 6th?
Turris is not a center, is he?
No. We didn't include. Just a second, I'll find it.
Nuge, Draisaitl, McDavid.
Oh, we include Nuge? Isn't he been a winger?
He's been playing center of late.
Okay, but he's played most of the time at wing. But we can have him at center. That's fine.
Yeah, Derek Ryan was the guy we were missing.
Yeah, we were just trying to balance.
I mentioned Ryan, yeah. But yeah, you guys had Nuge, and I didn't have him as a center. Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's get rolling. We'll start with Bruce. We'll start with you. Well,
okay.
Why don't we start with Connor McDavid? So we're going to give him. Excuse me. Let me just one more thing. We're going to grade the players on a 1 to 10 scale. 10 being transcendental, unbelievable hockey player, and 1 like they should not be in the NHL.
Right.
And so that's the scale that we use for the game grades, and we're going to use this same scale. So what 2 is? What's 2, guys? Atrocious. 3 is poor.
Yeah.
4 is below average. 5 is average. 6 is above average. 7 is good. 8 is great. 9 is excellent, and then 10 is transcendental. Okay, Bruce. How is Connor what do you rate him and why?
9 is outstanding. 8. I'm going to give Connor McDavid an 8 for great. I think on the balance of the season, he's been a driver. Certainly pumping up the goals, driving the offense like he always does. Arguably, you could split his season down into the first 21 games of a 9 and the second 21 games as being a 7. In that his especially scoring production has basically dropped from 2 points a game to 1 point a game, but on balance over the whole first half of the campaign, 60 points, and sort of drawing the best that the opposition has to offer, outscoring the opposition at even strength, and leading that power play that was so very powerful for the first, more than half of the 42 games played to date.
Alrighty, I'll step up next, and I'll go with winger Zach Hyman. Hyman was the free agent signed to a 7-year deal with the Oilers, correct? $5.5 million. Is that what it turned out to be? And Toronto wouldn't trade that draft pick, the Matvei Petrov draft pick, so the Oilers could extend him to 8 years. I'm going to give Zach Hyman a 7. I think he's been good. And I just really like this player. His effort is consistent. He hardly ever has a bad game. He is one of the best puck protectors in the NHL. He puts on a clinic in puck protection almost every single game. He has moves with the puck. He is sound and solid, smart defensive hockey player who gives his full effort. He's been banged up a little bit, which is the story of his career. And when he gets banged up, he gets less effective. And I think we saw that about a month ago. He's back now. He's playing strong hockey. He is a good hockey player. He's played very well for the Edmonton Oilers. So I'm going to go with 7 for him. Kurt, Darnell Nurse.
Darnell Nurse. How did you know he was my top-rated defenseman? Yeah, I grade Darnell Nurse a 7.
I kind of went back and forth on this a little bit. I think on the whole, the Oilers' defense has been a little below what it was last year. And I think part of that is because Darnell Nurse's play has been a little bit below what it was last year, where I would have graded him an 8, like 8.5. The guy still is handling 26.5 minutes a night. Generally speaking, faces the best opposition. Certainly is a heavy 5-on-5 player. He's generally speaking, he's on the number 1 penalty killing unit. He's usually in the number 2 power play unit. And when he's on his game, I think he is certainly the most talented defenseman that the Oilers have. And I think he's the toughest defenseman that the Oilers have in terms of engaging in physical play. Not what he's been over the last year, but still I grade him out of 7. I think he's the best the Oilers have got.
Were you thinking of going higher or lower than that, Kurt? You said
I toyed with the 6 because I think we can agree that he particularly hasn't been great in January. I think he was a little bit better to start with. But I ended up just nudging him over a 7. And spoiler alert, he's the only Oilers D-man who will grade out a 7 or higher. So,
well, 7 is code for good. And he's been good. I agree with. I would have given the exact same grade. He's been good. I would say good, not great. Last year, you could make a lot better argument for great.
Let's. If someone objects, you feel free to step in and give a lower or higher mark. I have agreed with the mark so far.
Yeah, agreed.
We'll do it that way. All right, Leon Draisaitl, Bruce.
Yeah, I got to give him an 8 as well. I mean, he's a great player playing great hockey. I mean, he was, again, like McDavid, you could make the case 9 in the first quarter, 7 in the second quarter. But he's a major mover and shaker, second in the league in scoring race, first, I believe, in points per game, and one off the league lead for goals. And, he's got games in hand on the guys that are ahead of him. So he's certainly delivering it offensively. And he's, as usual, serving time both as a winger and a center. It seems now that he's settling more into play center on his own line, which I, for one, am happy to see. And it seems that the thing is that they can count on this guy to do a whole lot of things for him. Take face-offs as needed, be the Foegele, take face-offs again on the penalty kill and help out that unit. And dominate on the power play, where he's got 13 power play goals and is leading the Oilers for at least the 5th year in a row in that department. And top, it's got positive player 5-on-5, and again contributing to that big power play. So I don't know how to separate McDavid and Draisaitl. Their stats are so similar. 60 points plus 7, 63 points plus 6, and both on the, overlapping in so many areas. I think they've been great, and that's what we expect.
Yep. I agree with the grade. If I had to pick a team MVP, I'd give it to Leon just because of his performance on defense.
Mm-hmm.
I would give it to Leon as well. I think that he has outperformed Connor McDavid somewhat at even strength, and his power play is exceptional. So he can also kill penalties. So he's, Connor McDavid has been spectacular, but Leon's just because of the two-way aspect of his game, and I'd give it to him as well.
He's also bigger value against contact.
That's true, Bruce.
Value to cap hit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, Puljujarvi, and he's kind of in between grades for me, but I'm going to go with a higher grade, which is a 7. I think he's been good. And he's in a big goal-scoring slump right now, although I do note that his grade A shots have been during this slump. Can't remember how many games it is exactly, 10 or 11 or 12. With no goals. He's still been getting as higher rate. His shots per game is down a little bit, but his grade A shots per game is as much as ever. He has impressed me both as a two-way player. He's a smart defensive hockey player. I actually think he should be on the PK. And a lot of his offensive contributions, his even strength points per game isn't great, but a lot of his offensive contributions are not recognized with points because he does a lot of work winning pucks behind the net. So he might get the third assist, but screening in front of the net. This is especially the case on the power play. He'd have if you got a point for every time you'd screen the goalie on the power play on a goal, he'd have 5 or 6 or 7 more points. He does the total eclipse of the sun screen of the goalie. Incredibly effective in that role. I think he's actually I like Zach Hyman in that role quite a bit, but I think Puljujarvi's a step above him. He just is that much bigger, and he's really quick to pucks, really quick to win them behind the net and get them to McDavid and Draisaitl. At even strength, we at the Cult of Hockey, every game we do video review, and we look at who makes major contributions to grade A shots for and against. So Hyman, the reason I have Hyman as a 7, he's got one of the highest numbers we've ever seen for a winger, which is plus 1.9 per game. That's better than Taylor Hall's best year. That we didn't track this particular stat for all of Taylor Hall's years as an Oiler, but better than, we tracked it at his final 2 years, I think, and it was better than Taylor Hall performed. It's better than any winger since that, Zach Hyman. And Puljujarvi is close to where Hyman is at. Significantly less, but he's very close. He's just playing at an outstanding level of two-way hockey, according to his contributions to grade A shots for, as opposed to his mistakes on grade A shots against. So it's one of these cases where I will argue the points are going to come. He's still involved in plays. He's had, I think, a little bit of a down cycle since he got COVID, but I think that he'll find a way to start putting up points again. And even when he's not, he finds a way to contribute to the Oilers' success.
Well, David, to your point, I mean, his shooting percentage is under 10% right now. Some of those are going to start to go in, right?
Yeah. Kurt,
on the power play, Puljujarvi, his scoring rates are the lowest of any of the forwards, 4.7 points per 60. But his on-ice goal rates are the highest. The Oilers' power play is more successful with Puljujarvi on the ice than any other player. He's about 10% higher than the trio that are always out there together of the 3 centers, McDavid, Draisaitl, and Nugent-Hopkins. They're all around 12 goals per 60, which is fantastic. And Jesse's at 13.3. So...
yeah, this is like Alex Chason, right? Who didn't necessarily get a lot of power play points, but the Oilers' power play was never better than when he was out there. Exactly. And Puljujarvi is similar in terms of his ability to screen the goalie. Kurt, let's move on, and going down the list of defensemen, we'll go to Cody Ceci next.
Cody Ceci, I graded a 5. I toyed with grading him a 6 because I think Cody Ceci has ended up being a better D-man than most people anticipated when he came in. I think part of that was to do with the fact that a lot of people in their heads thought Adam Larsson out, Cody Ceci in. I think we can agree they're not the same player. I think Cody Ceci is pretty good defensively, but he has not as strong as Adam Larsson was, and not as physical. But Cody Ceci certainly moves the puck better and has better puck sense deep in the offensive zone. I feel comfortable with him out there in almost any situation in that second pairing on the right-hand side. I think first pairing is too much for him, but I think he fits nicely in that second position. And as shaky as the Oilers' defense has been at times this year, I kind of shudder where they would have been had Cody Ceci not been in that 2RD position. So Cody Ceci grades out of 5 for me.
I would give him a 6. I think he's just been super steady in a top 4 role. Like, consistently, Nurse can be high event, right? Lots good can happen, a lot bad can happen when Darnell Nurse is on the ice, especially recently. I find Ceci did have the one really terrible game, which we charted recently. He made 7 major mistakes on grade A shots against. But he has been very consistent and a hell of a bargain signing, if you ask me at this point. Like, I think, he'd be, if he was paid $4 million, $4.5 million, and it's 3.25 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I agree on that.
So he's a bargain player. He's been very consistent. He's in the top 4 role, and he's doing well. So I'd say he's an above average player, and I would give him a 6. Tiebreaker, Bruce?
Uh,
5.5.
yeah, I'll go with the 5. I think he's been average for his role. I think he's been, and compared to what we thought we might be getting, average is all right. But I'm right in between too. Like it's right in between those two numbers to me. So.
Although
When
with our
we
grades,
acquired him, I thought he'd be a 4 player. So a
Well,
5 is he's outperformed my expectations.
I thought he'd be a 4 too. Although when we grade, we don't really grade for your position. We grade compared to all other NHL players, right?
Yes.
Isn't that's so?
Mhm.
Like so you could say, well, Nurse is a number 1 defenseman is not a 7. Like he's not. Well, I think he actually is, but anyway. Okay, let's go back to Bruce with Derek Ryan.
Oh, okay. I'll go with Ryan, and I'm going to give Derek Ryan a grade of 4 to this point in the season. He's I like lots of things about the player, and I like the player. Of course, here we're grading the performance of the player, and his performance has left me cold more nights than not. And I do think he's coming around. I think he's played better this last 10 games than he did any time prior to that. But he's been getting crushed on the scoreboard at both even strength and on the penalty kill, where his unit's been giving up lots of goals. In all situations, which granted is weighted to defense, he's been on for 11 goals by the Oilers and 37 by the other team. And that's, that's not a good ratio, even for a full-time penalty killer. That's a little bit harsh. So based on that, and I think they thought they were getting a 3C with Ryan, and they tried to make him a 3C, and he was always to me a 4C. And once he found himself in that line, I think he's been okay. So if he played 4C all year, I'd probably be giving him a 5, but it wouldn't be any more than that, I don't think, because he's at that stage, 35 years old now, where it's you're just struggling to keep up in this league.
Yeah, I could see if he did better on the PK, you could bump up his mark, but he had a really wretched stretch.
Yeah, I'm with you on a 4 as well.
Tyler Benson, and this is a player who's kind of between a 4 and a 5 for me. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and give him a 5. His grade A shots underlying numbers are strong. So he's not giving up hardly anything in the defensive end. I can recall a few glaring mistakes, but they've been few and far between. And he's created a bit on the attack. Now he's only here's the problem where you could argue for a 4. He's got 1 assist in 19 games. This is a real issue for him. He's got to figure out a way to score. But he is figuring out a way to stay in the NHL. He's hitting, and he's grinding, and he's getting in people's face. He's trying to be an annoying player, and he's succeeding at it, I think. Many games I've wondered why he's not in the lineup ahead of people like Kyle Turris and Colton Sevier, to name 2 players. Turris all year long, and Sevier more recently. I'm going to give him a 5.
Add Brendan Perlini to that list of guys. It's so many nights for the first part of the season when the opportunity maybe was there, and it would go Perlini, Benson, and neither one of them could get any momentum going. And it was, you might argue that the Oilers set a low bar for him and he wasn't able to clear it. But I think he's been fine, and he's, his regular line mates have been guys that don't put the puck in the net much, so he can make all the clever passes he wants. Not many of them are going to get converted into goals. So I'm still not sure we know what we have in this player.
Yeah, you know what? If you really held my feet to the fire, David, I think I'd give him a 4. And I don't agree with your assessment of what he's brought and how he's tried to evolve his game, and I really admire that about him. But I don't think you can be a forward in this league and have 1 point and expect to stick. And I'm worried about that because I like the player. But boy, push is going to come to shove here pretty quickly in terms of the roster. They've been trying to get around waiving him all year. I'm not sure how much longer they can get away with not waiving him, and I still think he might get claimed. So that's my nervous number 4 for Tyler Benson. Although my heart gives him a 5.
Kurt, Tyson, Barrie.
4. And you know what? As you guys probably know, I'm a Tyson Barrie fan. I like the player. But I think we can all agree that he has been inconsistent all year long.
Yep.
And I think we expect the inconsistencies on defense, and they were glaring early in the season. The problem is he really hasn't picked up the pace on offense. And at least half the time in the last 10, 12 games, he's been displaced on the number one power play. Now, part of that, of course, is because he was injured. But the power play was also sputtering when he was still in there. I just think that he has to bring his game up another notch to make it worthwhile having a Tyson Barrie on your roster, which is a guy that is going to bring you lots of creativity and production on offense, and enough that you can look the other way when he suffers on defense. And I just don't feel like he's made that grade. And while, let's look at it this way. Last year, he was the number one points getter among defensemen in the NHL. He's not even close this year. His offense is way off. And while his defense has been better lately, not enough to offset his lack of production. So I'm afraid I park my guy Tyson Barrie, who I like, with a 4.
I would actually, I'm between a 5 and a 6 on Tyson Barrie. I think he struggles when he's on the top pairing with Nurse. He doesn't belong there. He's not that kind of player who can take those heavy minutes against really good competition. When you put him down the lineup, I've liked his play, and I think it's been, he's been way more solid defensively down lineup this year than he was last year. He's played a better defensive game. He came into the year talking about doing that, and it looked like it was a farce in the first games of the year when he was with Nurse, and he just got eaten alive against tough competition. He can't do it. But you put him just a rung below that, or 2 rungs below that, which he's often been this year, and he's played decent hockey. He's been steady. And he's been plagued in the past by bad decision making, leading to 2-on-1 rushes against, where he will pinch up the ice. He's cut that out of his game significantly. You hardly ever see it. So so I'm not going to give a mark, like a final mark. It's somewhere between 5 and 6 because I'm just dissenting anyway. So it's not like you've given him the mark, Kurt. So I would grade him him higher. I would grade him higher. Bruce?
Yeah, for what he gets, they hired him, and in some ways he's redundant to Evan Bouchard in terms of the skill set he brings. So he's got better results on the power play, Barrie, than Bouchard, and so does Nurse for that matter. But for in terms of the unit itself, how productive it's been when he's been out there, which is sort of my go-to metric. But for $4.5 million, 3-year contract, a third pairing defenseman, it's not necessarily what you were hoping to get.
All right. We're back to Bruce with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Yeah, I'm going to give the
center wing.
Yeah, center wing. He's been playing center lately. All the guys on my list are the guys that have 100+ faceoffs this year. Was how we split it, but I wound up getting some nice forwards for sure out of that. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I'm giving him a 7. He's gotten a full +1 grade for his work on the 2 special teams, which he's a big minute producer on both power play and penalty kill. He plays more special teams minutes than any other forward on the Oilers. In fact, I think any other player on the Oilers, because Nurse doesn't play the power play minutes that Nuge does. Anyways, he is at even strength 5-on-5. The Oilers have outscored the opposition 25-19 with RNH on the ice. That's a 57% goal share. On the penalty kill, he's been out for 66 minutes, and he's been on for 4 goals by Edmonton and 5 by the other team. They've only given up 1 more goal than they've scored in an hour plus on the penalty kill. And he has the best goals against rate on the team and the best goals for rate on the team. And then turn that around on the power play. He's played about twice as many minutes, 130 compared to 65 or whatever on the penalty kill. And Edmonton's power play has scored 26 goals and allowed 2. So you put all those numbers together, and Nuge has been on the ice for a lot more goals for than against. and he's been given kind of equal duty of he's got a lot of responsibilities, defensive assignments as well as offensive. And just those goals results to me are encouraging enough. And the fact that the team really took a step forward in the right direction big time when he returned from injury a few games ago. He's played 5 games, 4 goals, 3 assists, plus 6, I think, in the 5 games since he came back. And the whole team has gotten a spark from that.
You know, if we ignored the fact that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins only has 6 goals, I think you could say this is the best version of the Nuge that we've ever seen. Like, I think he's at the top of his game right now, and his shooting percentage is at 7%, so he's not going to stay at 6 goals either. I completely agree with the 7.
I agree. I think he's producing more offense than he's being rewarded for. Now, this is the second year in a row of bad puck luck for Nuge. Maybe it happens that way. So, at some point you think, well, something's not clicking, but I'm not there yet. Kailer Yamamoto, I'm going to give him a 5. He's been a disappointing player on the Oilers this year. They reunited the dynamite line. It didn't have the magic, didn't have the boom, kaboom that it had previously. And Yamamoto just doesn't seem to have that elite offensive skill to really get it done in the top 6. I mean, I like him as a defensive player, but where's the finishing? He's a good passer. He's a decent forechecker. He has his moments, but this is his second year running of disappointing even strength point scoring. And I'm not seeing quite the level of offensive contribution from him as I am from Nugent-Hopkins, who's also been in kind of this is into a second year offensive slump for point production. So he's got to pick it up. There's wingers coming, man. There's Raphael Lebois coming on. There's Dylan Holloway coming on. There's Xavier Bourgault, who's been drafted. There are other players coming, and he's going to be entering. He's off his entry level, or no, he's off his second contract, 5th year as a pro, and he's going to be needing a new contract. And I could see him, if he doesn't pick it up, it's easily Puljujarvi ahead of Yamamoto at this point for who the team would have back, I think. I don't want to see him go. I want to see him succeed. I think he has a lot of success, but he's got to get more production. He just has to, because it's not going to suddenly pick up in the playoffs when a smaller guy has even more trouble. So it's not quite there.
Yeah, he's not breaking through. He's only got 50 shots. It's not like he's got bad puck luck. It's not happening for him, and he's, to some extent, he's not making it happen around the kill zone. I still think he hunts pucks well. I still think he digs out pucks. Still think he hustles, but around the blue paint, he's just not cutting it. And come the end of the season, the Oilers are going to have to decide who their top 2 right wingers are. And I don't think today that we could say that Kailer Yamamoto is one of those 2 top right wingers.
All right, Kurt, we're moving on, and we'll go with Evan Bouchard.
6. And I toyed around with this one a little bit. At the end of the day, Evan Bouchard is on pace for, like a 17-18 goal, could be a 50-point season. Like, talk about a breakthrough offensive season for this guy. And he's not getting soft pedaled either. He's playing 21 minutes a night. Like, he's taking on heavy minutes, which is why I grade him a 6 and not lower, because of his defense. And we all know that his defense has holes in it. However, I take into account a number of things. One, his age and maturity level as a player. I mean, it's young players, especially young D-men, are going to have issues in their own zone. And the amount that he's playing and the amount of times that he's on the number 1 pairing and he's playing against, the more elite set, I think it's understandable that we're seeing more mistakes on the defensive side from Evan Bouchard. And while that doesn't make it okay, you understand that this is a process of this guy learning how to be a top 4 defenseman in the NHL. But in the meantime, he's bringing a level of offense that is certainly what you would have hoped for when you drafted this guy. But there's a lot of miles between draft day and pulling it off in the NHL. And so far, 42 games into the season, his offensive numbers are sparkling. I toyed with getting him a 7, but I just don't think his defensive work warrants it yet, so I landed as a 6.
Bruce, Devin Shore.
Yeah,
Your favorite player.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's not, but I don't actually hate him, and there's things I like about his game this year. But I'm going to rate him a 4, and I'm going to say that he was a hard 4 in the first part of the season, and I've been more into his game this last little while. I think he's played some of his best hockey as an Oiler. You know, he's scoring a little bit. He's up to 1.46 points per 60, which is not terrible for a fourth line player. But he is losing the goal share battle and shot share battle, and his function on the penalty kill again improved in the last couple games. But the penalty kill unit with him on the ice has been getting caved. I think it was the worst of any Oiler forward in terms of goal rate, goals against rate. And let me see if it's still the same. I got this stuff.
That's saying a lot because Ryan and Sevier have not
Yeah,
been.
you know, it's all three of them, and they were the fourth line
Yeah.
for a while. You think that if they were there for their penalty killing, then I don't know about that. But anyway, he is at Shore's worst on the team, 12.6 goals against per 60, compared to 4.7 for Nugent-Hopkins. Like, it's an immense gulf.
He is trending up.
He's trending up, and he's a 4+ as opposed to a solid 4 or even 4-. I am seeing some good things, but you think of the replacement level player that they could have in there doing that job. He's going to be at least as good as Devin Shore, I would think. And to me, the replacement level player is a 4. That's about what you expect from a guy rolling in. That he's not going to quite be up to NHL average.
Warren Foegele is my guy, and I'm going to give him a 5. And it's like a little, you know, it's not 5+, it's 5-. I like a lot about this player. I like his size, speed, his puck protection, his battle level. He is the kind of winger the Oilers need. And you know, in the third or fourth line, he's got the worst plus-minus on the team, official NHL plus-minus at -15. But when you dig into that, which we do at the Cult of Hockey, doing our video analysis, you see that he's kind of an average winger in terms of like his real contributions to goals and real mistakes on goals against. He's contributed to 11 goals at even strength and 8 mistakes on them. So he's +3 in that regard. Our system the wingers tend to be higher, and I won't get into the reasons for that. So that's kind of an average number on the Oilers' third, fourth lines, which are not very good third, fourth lines. So he hasn't been great. He hasn't been good. He hasn't been above average, but he does bull in there on the attack. His physical presence kind of bumps him from a 4 to a 5, I think. So that's what I'll stick with. Kurt, anyone want to give him a lower or higher mark? Go ahead, Bruce.
I wish he'd hit more.
Yeah.
And I'm a little surprised that he didn't turn out to be a penalty killer. Like, from some of what we were hearing when he was coming in, he might fill in on that unit. But anyway, so he's more of a, you know, he's certainly not a defensive specialist, let's put it that way, but he's more of a grinder, basher. And if he bashed more, I would like him more, I think. I don't mind him, but I for all of his speed and apparent tenacity, finish the odd check would be nice.
Yeah,
he's not short enough to be a penalty killer on the Oilers, Bruce.
You know what? He should be a 6 player,
long.
right, on this roster. So I buy that he's a 5 right now.
Okay, Kurt, here we go. Duncan Keith, here 5. We go, man. Here we go. 5.
5.
All right.
So this was the classic case of it takes almost every player in the NHL a little while to adjust to new team, new role, new position, all that kind of stuff. And we saw that early with him. I think his game was very uneven to start the year. And I think it was fair to, even if you had no issue with the contract and the acquisition cost, you were still going, oh boy. But we've seen that level out substantially. In fact, I just wrote this this morning in my 9 Things blog for the Cult of Hockey. I think he's been the Oilers' best defenseman since Christmas. He's really leveled out. The points have started to come. He's got a goal, 13 assists, 14 points in 33 games. He's +3. His Corsi's 52%. What I really like about his game is how quickly he transitions the puck. Like when the puck hits his tape, it's a glance and it's gone again. There's no screwing around in his own zone with the puck. And 9 times out of 10, that works out really well for him. Yes, I do see him getting caught occasionally in his own zone. Occasionally, I see him getting caught at the attacking blue line, which is why I can't grade him any higher than a 5. But I think he is a 5 at this standpoint. And in that second pairing with Ceci, night in and night out, I think it's giving the Oilers a stable pairing.
I wouldn't go with occasionally, Kurt, like occasionally making mistakes. Like this player, I'm going to stick with your 5, but he is way too high event. He has been sparkling on the attack. His passing is really good. He has been a bit of a disaster in his own zone, and it started out worse.
Too strong, David.
No, I don't. He has been, especially at the start. Now he's been
at
better.
Start, yeah.
But Kurt, he's been better, but he's still way too high event for my like. There's too many mistakes on grade A shots against with this player on the ice. There just is. We're counting him up. I like this guy's attack. I'm cheering for Duncan Keith, but I'm seeing too many mental mistakes, like bad pinches. Like, what are you doing? And so, I'll go with the 5 because it's high event, both good things and bad things. So they're balancing each other out. But there's lots of bad things.
Yeah. So. Well, it'd be boring if we didn't debate some of these.
all 14 of his points came at even strength, I'll add. He's had no opportunity on the power play, so that's pretty darn good production from the back end. He is a plus player. I enjoy watching some of the veterans anyway, as a matter of course, but some of the things that he's able to do in close quarters when a guy's all over him to somehow control a puck, get it on his stick and get it out when the guy's all over him. And, he's got shortcuts of how to get the puck on his own stick and get it going somewhere else. And I enjoy watching some of that stuff. The player, I'm, David's right that we do chalk up lots of odd man rushes and so on and grade A chances against, but he does balance that out with some positives. I still hate the acquisition cost, but I don't think that's what we're grading here.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to mention it, Bruce.
Had to get it in somewhere, right?
Ryan McLeod, Bruce. Ryan McLeod.
Yeah, I'm going to give Ryan McLeod a 6 because this is a developing player who is developing, and he's developing in some pretty nice ways. Like at the 5-on-5, which is substantially where he plays, of course, and mostly he plays at center. He's had a little bit of time on the wing lately, but he's well north of 50% on all of the possession stats. And this isn't because he's getting primo ice time, at least not until very, very recently, where he's been playing. His most common line mates are Zach Kassian and Warren Foegele. And, he's facing probably more time against third pairing defensemen, but also with third pairing defensemen on his own team and that third line duty. And he's breaking even on goal shares. He's producing right around 1.5 points per 60, which for this player, I'm impressed he got there this fast. I thought it might take him a year or more before he started figuring in any offense. And, 5 goals, 3 assists. It's not like he's piling them in, but he's halfway to 10 goals, and this is playing 10 minutes a night with no feature time with star players or power play time or any of that. So I think his development is very positive, and that's what makes me round up as opposed to down.
Yeah. And a kid his age, he's just shy of 50% of the face-off circle, which you have to think that's only going to get better from here.
Yeah,
I would give him a 6 too.
I'd give him a 5. I think I'd like to see more physical play, and more taking the puck to the net. I think he's been okay defensively, but there's been a number of mistakes. Like he's not been strong defensively. He's been at best average. So I'm going to stick with a 5 for him. Kurt, it's my turn. So I got a run of players: Sevier, Kassian, Perlini, and Turris, and I'm going to do them all at once. they're all 4s except for Turris, who's a 3. And Sevier started out strong, smart two-way player, and then he's got to be a strong penalty killer, and he just started to get eaten alive on the penalty kill. They were sieving him and Ryan, passing between them. You can't have two such small players, I don't think, together on the penalty kill. They're just not. They just don't have the wingspan to cover off those seams together. And maybe one guy like that would work, but that was a bad strategy and poorly executed by Sevier and Ryan. Brendan Perlini hasn't gotten enough done. He's been better lately. He's got obviously a great shot. He gets it off now and then. His second stint's been better, but he's just too inconsistent. And other than the shot, what is there? Like he's not physical. He's not particularly good defensively. So a 4. Zach Kassian has been one of the big disappointments. Well, maybe you weren't expecting a lot from Zach Kassian this year. He's been just barely okay. I don't think he's been as good as Foegele. So, in terms of a big physical forward, he still hits, but the hits aren't memorable. The offensive plays are sometimes there, sometimes not. He's inconsistent. So maybe he can find a spot for himself on the 3rd or 4th line. He's obviously paid a lot for that role, but I just don't see the consistent smart hockey, which we've never seen from Kassian. But I'm not seeing that unbelievable desire to get in there and make a physical impression on the other team, which we did see more often earlier in his Oilers career. It's kind of faded substantially as he's gotten older. Kyle Turris was obviously a very fine NHL hockey player. But I think it's the skating. I just don't see him keeping up anymore. And he's just a very ineffective hockey player. I have no idea why they have stuck with him in the NHL. I don't see him as an NHL player anymore. So, he's a 3 bordering on a 2. Any disagreement?
He was a mighty quick signing, last summer. Nashville bought him out on, I think it was the 7th of October in the afternoon, and the Oilers signed him on the morning of the 9th, which was the first day of free agency. It was the equivalent to July 1st. Giving a 2-year contract to a guy that's just been bought out of a big contract by another team right away. And I'm not sure they did their homework. And, they made an investment in this guy 2 years. And there was other guys, there's other ways they could have spent that market. I was at the Florida game watching Turris play and watching Anthony Duclair playing for Florida. He signed for the same money in Florida that Edmonton get, And I mean, if there was a player that could have made a difference.
I think Ken Holland. Sorry, Bruce.
Go for it, Kurt. Your turn.
I think Ken Holland took Dave Tippett's advice on the player and is sorry that he did.
Yeah. And Tippett won't give up on him. I think this is a case of the coach. Coach, you got to just wear it, and move on, man.
I think 2 of the guys you mentioned, David, Turris and Sevier, I think they'll be in Bakersfield by Wednesday.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. Okay, we're moving on, and we will go to Kris Russell, the Caroline Cowboy. Kurt.
Yes, 5. I vacillated between a 4 and a 5. When I was watching him early on in the year when he was trying to come back from injury, I thought, maybe the Cowboys gonna hang up his saddle. I was worried for him because this is a player who I've admired over the years, and I thought, that might be a step you never get back, Kris, right? Yeah. But you know what? He did. And he has still struggled with injury. He hasn't been able to stay entirely healthy all year. But when you look at his underlying numbers and the contributions that he's made and the role that he's played, he's been quite effective when he's been able to be in the lineup. And at this age, I don't think you should expect Kris Russell to be anything more than a 6-7 on your team. That's what he is on this team. And I think when you look at the underlying numbers and the production that they're getting for him, you think, with this new contract, if you're in there 40 games out of 80 in a year, I'll take that. And of course, he's still going to block a shot here and chip a puck out there. So probably closer to a 5- than a 5+, but I grade him out as a 5.
He's got a goal share of 59%.
There you go. He's always been good at the old goal share.
He's got the best goals for per 60 rate on the team. He must be the driver.
Yeah,
I think he's on a bit of a PDO heater, but
yeah, he's tied for second on the team in plus minus.
He's been a PDO heater for 10 years, Kris Russell. He's constantly bamboozling those by getting better goal results than what you'd expect from his shots. I admire the player. I have to admit it. I mean, 35 years old now, is he? He's 5'10", 170 pounds, among the 2 or 3 lightest defensemen in the entire league, and has been the entire time. And somehow he's been a survivor. Now, I will cheerfully admit I like him a whole lot more at 1.25 million a year than I did at 4 million. But I think he's slotted into a place where he can and he is helping the team as a depth defender, and probably helping also as a mentor for these young guys that are coming along. So I agree with the 5. Nothing
I liked
special, but not terrible.
I liked your statistical analysis, Bruce. You know what they say about Kris Russell? He pushes the river. He pushes the river. That's an inside joke for stats people. I really like this player too. He's always been super solid in the defensive slot, and there's been many games this year when I've been glad he's in the roster, right? Glad he's part of the team still. He's not quite as impeccable in the defensive slot anymore. He's not the sure thing that he was not the sure thing, but like he was almost the surest thing other than Adam Larsson to shut you down when you came in the defensive slot. Previous Oilers teams, he's lost a little bit there, but some games he finds it, and I'm glad he's out there. So Bruce, we're run out of forwards. I'm going to say let's go to Evander Kane, or we've run out of centers, I should say, but we're going to go to Evander Kane.
I'm going to do the goalies. You're going to do Evander Kane because he's the winger.
All right, I forgot you were doing the goalies. Let's start with the goalies. Mike Smith.
Okay, well, he gets an incomplete grade because he's only played 6 games. In fact, he's only dressed for 6 games. He hasn't spent any time on the Oilers bench all season long. When he's been available, he's gone right in the lineup, and he either played the whole game or the one game he came out when he got hurt in early October. He came out and was out for 10 weeks, and he came back and he played 2 games in late December on the road trip, and he gave in 10 goals in 2 games and got hurt again and missed another couple of games and played 1 game, gave in 4 more goals, and wasn't able to go again after that. So it's just been one stint after another on injured reserve. And other than the 2, I would call them great games that he played to start the season, wins over Vancouver and Calgary to open the season. Doesn't get much sweeter than that for Edmonton fans. And he looked really good, and then he got hurt in the 3rd game, and the whole season has just gone right into the crapper for him. And so incomplete. And if you were to grade, his contribution to the team, it would have to be a low grade. So I don't really want to go there other than to say he hasn't been able to help.
Okay, I got Evander Kane. So he's played just 3 games for the Oilers, and I have to give him an 8. He's been great. Mm-hmm. He's got 3 points in 3 games. He's plus 5. He defended Connor McDavid after Connor McDavid, I can't remember who hit him now, but that big hit by in Washington by who's that dude? It was more of a collision actually. I thought it wasn't a hit. Like
Hathaway.
Oh, the Hathaway, the former Garnet Hathaway, the former Flames winger.
He ran him into the bench, and then was it Orlov that ran into him and tried that he hurt. Yes, looked like he hurt his shoulder. Yep. He got smoked twice in that game, but he also had 7 hits himself in that game, and he was one of the pushback guys on the Oilers.
He went after Hathaway. I loved it. He's got a knack for deflecting pucks. That's always a very useful skill. The Oilers don't have a lot of guys who can do that. Yeah, that's right. So as a hockey player, he's gotten better every game. What's not to like? He's been great. He's producing. So good start for Evander Kane.
9 shots and 15 hits in 3 games, and he's probably going to be 30% better once he gets into game shape.
All right. Anyone disagree on the 8?
Nope.
All right.
I would call it incomplete, David, but he's trending in that direction.
Sure.
I wouldn't want to grade a guy on 3 games, but he's trending in that direction. He's been solid for sure.
Kurt, Wild Bill Lagesson.
4. William Lagesson has the ability to put a couple of solid NHL games together. The problem for guys like Lagesson at his level of talent and ability is the NHL, it's tough to turn that 2 into 3 and that 3 into 4. And I think that's what he's going to have a hard time getting over the hump with. I think he plays a simple, hard, tough game in his own zone, along the walls, below the goal line. He's limited in what he can bring offensively. He's just, maybe he's an average skater. I think he's a little below average skater. He really doesn't have much of a gift at the other end of the ice. I think this guy is a 7-8 organizational defenseman who's playing as a 6/7 right now. And I think those players are 4s. Could he get to a 5? Maybe, but there's a guy, because he's never going to bring much offensively. He needs to string a half dozen solid defensive games back to back before I'm going to say, yeah, he's a 5. So I put Wild Bill Lagesson as a 4.
Right now, Alan Walsh is taking the pin out of the Dave Tippett voodoo doll and sticking it right through the head of the Kurt Levins voodoo doll.
I followed Alan Walsh for a while on Twitter, but he just, everything all his players do is the best thing ever. And it's like, yeah, okay, turn it down a little.
And now he's getting a lighter and he's lighting the Kurt Levins voodoo doll on fire.
I'm sure he has bigger, nastier, more important people to worry about than me.
Okay, Mikko Koskinen, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm giving him a straight 5. Average goalie, average player. He's doing more or less what was expected for him. You can argue about his contract, but again, that's a different discussion than performance. He's 16 wins, 8 losses, and 2 overtime points. I mean, the Oilers have gotten the results when he was out there, but oddly, about 6 of the losses came in succession. And at that point, Oil Country was ready to send him out to pasture or behind the barn or whatever. His stats are, pretty middling, 900 save percentage, goals average a little above 3, and he's an average goalie. Like I don't think he's below average, and I certainly don't think he's above average. So I mean, it's right square on 5 as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, that works for me. Kurt, we're gonna go back to you. Slater Koekkoek.
3.
Ooh.
He's been a disaster in his own zone. There's been moments with him moving the puck where, you've seen some ability there, and you harken back to the play-in series that we saw when the Oilers played Chicago, and he played really well for Chicago in that series. Wow, where has that player gone? There is another guy who I think by Wednesday is going to be in Bakersfield, and signed this guy to a 2-year contract.
Yeah.
That's looking mighty iffy right now. Like, it's what's going to happen to that second year. Someone's going to have to get hurt, I think, for him to get back up. There was no one single night where I thought, aha, this is the Slater Koekkoek that we know and love. I haven't seen it. And you know me, I hate slamming players, but I find it impossible to give him more than 3.
You're seeing the same thing I'm seeing in the defensive zone. Like there's just too many disasters, and you expect a guy like that in that position to be low event and to maybe not score a whole lot, which he doesn't, but to not give up a whole lot. And there's been a few just kind of shake your head plays. Like anyway, there's no point in getting into specific plays, but just in general, the play. The ice is tilted the wrong way against the Oilers when that player's on the ice. And that second year, Kurt, he got a $350,000 raise. He got an NHL minimum this year. Next year, $1.1 million. And I just don't know why Ken Holland figures that he has to go longer than 1 year on some of these guys. I mean,
and Philip Broberg is going to be in that 3 left D role next year, if not 2. So I just don't see a path for Slater Koekkoek back to the NHL with the Oilers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any way Philip Broberg's not on the Oilers next year. Like he's
I don't know either.
You could argue he should be there now,
Mm-hmm.
and like by now, like start off the year in the AHL. But he's done. I guess. Well, Bruce, you did an update on him, and he was coming back from COVID and wasn't great.
It was his COVID return game, and Kurt's pointed this out in a couple of his grade reports, and I think I've made similar observations either on the cast or the post. But the players, especially their first game or a couple games back from being off skates for 5 or 10 days, they tend to be sort of out of touch, out of sync, out of everything. Yep. And Broberg had one of those kind of games on Friday night, and I basically totally forgave him for it. It's a tough night for the kid,
Yeah.
you know, he just survived. You know, some guy really took a run at him, and I was glad he got up from that, you know, and otherwise it was Stuart Skinner having the stops behind him, and he did play 8 games here, of course, in Edmonton, but -8, and he looked like he was a guy that, you know, had the pieces, but it was going to take him some time to put them together, and Bakersfield's just the place for that.
Yep.
Okay, Bruce, we're finishing up here, I do believe, with Stuart Skinner.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to give Stuart Skinner a 6. And I'm going to, the bonus point is just for him being jumping ahead of his development curve and making a huge forward progress this year from a guy that looked like a decent AHL goalie last year with a possible NHL future to a guy that's been pretty okay in the NHL this year and who's been great in the AHL. They put the two together, like he's having a real solid year. And his work ethic is good. I mean, he's been bounced around like a yo-yo a little bit. Like last week, you know, he went from beating Montreal Canadiens on Hockey Night in Canada to guess what, kid, you're going back to Bakersfield on Saturday night to play Colorado Eagles. Have fun with that. And he came down and he played a great game down there, and he won them that game, and to a very large degree. And I thought, good on you. You know, you're focused, eyes on the prize, getting better. And like I say, his NHL numbers have been the best of the 3. 908 save percentage. Doesn't sound like great. 2.85 goals against average, but the other guys are both 900 or below and way above 3 goals against average. And for a 23-year-old kid on an NHL minimum contract, he's, to me, he's delivered and plus. So yeah, I rounded up to give him the 6, but I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, he just keeps getting better. So that's what you hope to see in any prospect, and he's done it year after year.
And, you know, big picture with the Oilers still below sea level right now in terms of a playoff spot. And the fact that out of the 3 goaltenders, Stuart Skinner graded the highest. If we said that at the start of the year, right? So I think that explains a lot of why the Oilers where the Oilers are right now.
Yeah, this weird team. All right, let's leave it there, gents. We will post this and go from there. So thanks for talking tonight, Kurt. Thanks for talking tonight, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll pick it up with regular game coverage on Tuesday night. So we'll be back in the saddle for that.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah, same here, Kurt. Thanks for chipping in.
Yeah.
Nice to chat always. It's a trio.
Great to have you on the podcast tonight, Kurt. And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.